It's time for
DodgerHeads.
high fly ball into right field. Dodgers have won it all in 2020. Shohei Ohtani, 50-50 club. Strikes him out. There's a drive. Shohei Ohtani. Freeman hits the ball. Shien is gone. Birthday party, Los Angeles. Your Dodgers have won the World Series.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Bruce Kuntz, here to talk all things Dodgers, including a series split with the Mets, some injury updates. Bruce, happy Thursday to you, and you were able to see a day game and get home in time to talk DodgerHeads.
It's a beautiful Thursday, right? Midweek, but this feels like a weekend day. So I've enjoyed it. There's nothing better than day baseball at Dodger Stadium. So it's been a great day so far, and now I'm excited to debrief and talk about the game.
See, now I'm not sure I'm going to agree with you on liking day games at Dodger Stadium. I'm heavily a night game guy myself, but in this case, you get to do that. You get to talk with us, and I'm sure you at no point lost hope in the Dodgers coming from behind, Michael Conforto coming through clutch. At no point did you doubt that was going to happen, right?
Oh, definitely. I had the Spiegel hopium running through my veins. I was ready for it.
Yeah, Cole's saying, here comes the Conforto glaze. You better get ready for it. Look, if we're going to take beatings 3 times a week on this show, we being me, for holding on to my Conforto stock, when the guy gets the go-ahead game-winning hit, you better believe we're going to talk a little bit about it. So we'll see if Bruce is buying any of the Michael Conforto stock. But we're going to talk Landon Knack. We're going to talk Tanner Scott. We're going to talk some Hyseong Kim, Tommy Edman injury updates. We've got prospect corner. But again, let's start with the game that we saw, Bruce. The Dodgers come from behind to beat the Mets. They end up splitting this 4-game series that felt like it could have gone it could have been 4-0 either way in many cases. They end up splitting 2-2. And kind of a funky one. Per usual, they go down early. Landon Knack gives up a bunch of home runs. They claw back in the middle innings, give up another run, and then come back for good in the 8th. So of all the storylines, of all the things that happened, again, you were there. What jumped out to you most about today's game?
It's another one of those games that I think this happens very often, and it's easy for us to not fully realize as we're watching in live action as Dodger fans. It's one of those games that the Mets are leaving Dodger Stadium saying, I never want to play the Dodgers again. I hate that team. They always do this. It's one of those games. And I know that on Tuesday I was at the game as well. And I walked out of there and I was saying to myself, like, this felt like one of those games that they were going to make an improbable comeback, pull out a win somehow in the late innings, and then you just walk out and say, that's just the Dodgers. And today was that day where it's just a Dodger win, and it doesn't feel like other teams regularly do this. The Dodgers do regularly do this, and they flex their comeback muscles. And it was a big one, obviously, to make sure it's a split instead of losing the series at home.
Yeah, and kind of a funky game because, again, Landon Knack lasts just 3 1/3, gives up 3 home runs, 4 earned runs total. And then the bullpen kind of bails the Dodgers out. Urania gives up a run later on, but Dreyer gives you 2 scoreless, including getting out of a jam to start. Urania, 1 earned in 2 1/3 is probably better than anybody could have expected from him. Vesia gets an out, and then Tanner Scott, who, again, we will talk about a little bit later. So I think the bullpen, as a weak point that has been talked about a lot, Bruce, in tonight's game, they give you 5 2/3 of 1-run baseball. You've got to applaud that group on nights like tonight.
100%. Everybody did their job, and that was absolutely necessary today. I would imagine that there was certainly hope that Landon Knack would do a little better and get at least a little deeper in the game than he did. They've got 6 straight days coming up with games with this trip to St. Louis and then back to San Diego. So I know that they probably weren't hoping to be behind the 8 ball now in terms of rest, but that's where they are. If you get a win out of it, it feels like it's much more worth it. And that started with Jack Dreyer. This guy just continues to stud out. He struck out Pete Alonso in a big spot. Like you said, got through 2. Like, he just, whenever they need to turn to him, it doesn't feel like that they're handing the ball to a rookie and hoping for the best at all. He feels like he's been here for 10 years already, and the trust factor is absolutely there.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk Knack. Let's get to some of these super chats. We just had a $10 one from Freedom, so thank you, sir. It says, our team struggled to win this last game. Conforto was way overdue to get it done. 0 for 30 with runners in scoring position. I think it's safe to say he was overdue. Why didn't Freddie and Max play today? Mets a much better team than last year. Do you agree with that last part there, Bruce, that the Mets, does this feel like a better version of the Mets than we saw in the NLCS last year?
100%. And it starts with the starting pitching. That pitching staff is very legit. And we saw it from David Peterson today. He went 7 innings. And it just seems like anybody that they run out there as a starting pitcher is going to at least give a very competitive start. So the offense is similar. Obviously, you add Juan Soto, that's going to always help. But it's really the pitching staff that makes the Mets a scary team to me.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman and Max both getting the night off, at least to start. Freddie Freeman comes up as a pinch hitter, intentionally walked in front of Michael Conforto. I'm curious for you, in that sequence, Conforto comes up, Rojas comes up right after him. How surprised were you that Max Muncy did not come off the bench in either of those two spots?
Well, I can give you some insight here from watching, and I know I was kind of got on Twitter for this, but Max Muncy was going to hit for Miguel Rojas, and I think Carlos Mendoza made a mistake in the Mets dugout because he went out to make the pitching change and go to a lefty out of the bullpen before Muncy was announced. And there were people telling me opposite on Twitter thinking that it was intentional. I think that's fully a mistake. He went to get the lefty planning to face Max Muncy because he was in the on-deck circle ready to hit, and he just went and got the pitcher before he was announced. So the Dodgers stuck with Rojas. I still think, obviously, it's no secret Rojas has struggled this year, but in a situation like that, runners at the corners, you're already ahead by a run. The Dodgers were looking for a base hit there, and Miguel Rojas is still the better option against the left-handed pitcher than Max Muncy. So that's where it starts and ends. I think the Mets made a mistake, but just to say, Muncy was ready to come off the bench if it was still a right-handed pitcher in the game.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I agree that Muncy's the worst, that Rojas is a better option. I mean, I tweeted, and it's sort of unfair to Rojas. If anything could be unfair, that he doesn't have a hit since May 21st, which is true. He doesn't play every day, but he doesn't have any hits. But I think the other piece, which maybe you're factoring into your comment, is that if you're already up by a run, who do you want standing at third base when Tanner Scott comes into the game? Yeah. Even with a diminished Miguel Rojas defensively, I think we can all agree that if you already have the lead, you want to stick with defense there, probably would be my guess, at least.
That too. I just think that watching Max Muncy's at-bats against left-handed pitching, he just had one the other night where he's looked so great lately, and then they went to a lefty, and he just doesn't look the same with those breaking balls away. He's not a guy who throughout his career has particularly struggled left on left, but these last couple of years, it's certainly gotten worse. And I still think that when you need a base hit, Miguel Rojas against the left-handed pitcher isn't completely inept. And like you said, when you're able to stick with the defense for that top of the ninth inning, I think it was a mistake on the Mets' part. I think they planned to go to the lefty for Muncy.
Were you surprised that Muncy didn't come to hit for Conforto? Because before they could get to the Rojas situation, when the game was tied, they made the decision to leave Conforto in. Again, 0 for his last 30 with runners in scoring position. You've heard all the stats. Were you surprised in that moment?
Not really. No, I think that not only the Dodgers continue to stick with Michael Conforto. That they've proven that in a right on left matchup there. Conforto getting the start over Muncy today even surprised me with a left-handed pitcher on the mound. Conforto has had decent numbers against lefties, at least last year. I don't know for sure where he's been at this year. I think he's been bad against everybody, but they've shown that they trust him and they want to continue trusting him. And it's good that he came through, because I'm sure that if he didn't, we certainly would have been hearing a lot of a chatter about why it wasn't Max Muncy in that spot.
It's true. It's true. Aaron says, just checked my Robinhood account. Conforto stock is on the rise. Dang right it is. Dang right. It could only one direction to go from where it was to begin with, but up is the direction it is going. Luis says, ugly win, but a win nonetheless. I think that's the appropriate response. And then 300 day games are horrific for us fair-skinned redheads, and another good comeback. It's day games. I don't know what the temperature was today. When you get like a hot Sunday day game, to me, that's miserable. Give me the 70 degrees, 7:10 p.m. start. But maybe today was a little bit nicer earlier in the pre-summer.
The absolute key is if your seat is in the shade.
Fair.
And on a day like today, it was a 75-degree high, I believe. And I always sit in the shade. And with that kind of temperature, I like the environment of the day game. If you're in the sun, absolutely not. So if when I say I enjoy day games at Dodger Stadium, if everybody's mind is going to sitting down the third base line and baking the whole time, that is certainly not the experience that I enjoy.
I love it. Fair enough. That's a good helpful correction there. Bacon Tree with the super chat. Need this Mookie consistently. Note on Mookie. Blake Williams and I did a 20-minute breakdown of Mookie bets that we actually recorded before today's game, but it will post tomorrow morning. Just breaking down where we're at with Mookie. What do we believe, not believe is real? So stay tuned for that. Dreyer and Kasparius Rookie of the Year consideration. Kike, Teo, Rojas, all rough. Still not believing in Conforto. Is Scott finding it? We're going to get to a lot of these questions, so I'll hang out on the Conforto and Scott stuff. We did joke a little bit about Dreyer and Kasparius Rookie of the Year campaign. I believe, who was it? All these guys are in the mix. I think Hyseong Kim might be the highest odds, and then Dalton Rushing and Ben Kasparius, I think, are tied with, or maybe Roki Sasaki's the highest, and Hyseong Kim. Anyways, there's 4 guys who you could theoretically bet on for the Dodgers. I asked Anthony this question, and Bruce, you're a good person to ask this to. If you had to bet on a Dodger to win Rookie of the Year between Dreyer, Kasparius, Rushing, and Roki Sasaki, and Hyseong Kim, so I guess 5 of them, who would you place your bet on, assuming the odds were similar?
Yeah, that's a rough one because it's hard to imagine Ben Kasparius as a relief pitcher could get close to winning that. Right now, I don't know if any of those guys have a particularly great chance, but I still, if Kasparius, I'd put my money on him simply for the idea that if they decide to move him to the starting rotation at some point, or if they continue giving him this many innings out of the bullpen, whatever it is, if he somehow accumulated enough innings and continued pitching at the level that he's pitching at now, he'd certainly have to be at least considered. I think there are other rookies around baseball that unfortunately are going to make it tough. Drake Baldwin comes to mind for the Braves. They're going to make it tough for any of these Dodger guys to win it without this consistent, starting rotation spot or playing time for the hitters. But I think Kasparius might have the best chance right now just because he's so good.
Yeah. I zagged and basically said if I had to bet on anyone, I might bet on Rushing, because I think the only chance any of them have to win is if somehow somebody gets hurt and Dalton Rushing becomes an everyday guy. To your point, unless Kasparius becomes a starter in the next month, which seems unlikely, I just don't see him as a reliever and not the closer, at least right now, getting chances. So we'll see. Again, hold tight on Conforto and Scott. Freedom with another super chat. The biggest issue I've seen in our really talented team is leaving runners stranded on bases and failing to execute runs. It's happened playing other teams too. They were 3 for 10 with runners in scoring position today. You just need Will Smith to get up there. Get Will Smith up with runners on base, and that solves all of your problems, Bruce.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Any situational spot Will Smith can come through, he'll do that. So he's certainly great in those kind of spots. The thing that I've noticed for sure that's been frustrating, at least lately, is how many double plays that it feels like the Dodgers are hitting into. They're constant and everlasting. So I certainly can feel the frustration here.
Yeah, I think Peterson has now gotten 5 double plays from the Dodgers in his last 2 starts, which is insane. Kike and Edman both grounding into double plays today. I keep mentioning guys we're going to get to. Let's get to some of them. We're going to do a little buy or sell, and let's start with the starting pitcher from tonight's game, Landon Knack. Had been very good in his previous couple appearances, Bruce, coming into this one. In the 16 innings just prior to this one, that was like 2 starts and then the end of the appearance before, he had allowed just 2 earned runs with 14 strikeouts and 3 walks across 16 innings, had given them back-to-back 6-inning starts, felt like he was starting to figure some things out. Tonight, though, I keep saying tonight, today, 3 1/3, 4 hits, 4 runs, 5 walks, 1 strikeout, and 3 solo home runs allowed. So as a guy who's kind of followed Landon Knack through the prospect ranks, we obviously all saw him pitch fairly well last year. Where are you at on Knack right now and what you're seeing from him?
I'm buying who Landon Knack is. So when I say buy, that's with an understanding that I think Landon Knack is a back-end starter, and I'm not buying him becoming the ace, but I think that he can still fulfill that role. And the last 2 starts against the Mets in New York and then against the Yankees back here in LA were both very impressive. He looked like he figured some things out. And then the thing that I had the feeling going into today, when home runs continue to be the problem for him, pitching on a day game at Dodger Stadium is just never going to be the right combination for Landon Knack. And you saw it with the 3 home runs today that he surrendered to the Mets. It's just the way that it rolled. And I think that those home runs kind of snowballed on him, and it led to some command problems, and just everything fell apart today once the ball started flying. So I still think I'm willing to buy Landon Knack as the back-end depth starter that the Dodgers need him to be. I still think he can fulfill that role. Today was just a tough matchup for him and a tough game.
Yeah, if I had to guess, I mean, rest of season, I think Landon Knack could could give you an ERA in the 3.9 to 4.1 range. And for what the Dodgers currently need, they will take that because, again, he gave you 6 innings each of the last 2. So even if I told you he's averaging 5 and a little bit innings per start with a 3.9 to 4.1 ERA, I think we would all take that thumbs up. Of course, that means some nights it's going to be 6 innings, 1 earned, and other nights it's going to be 3 1/3 and 4 earned. But you hope that it kind of all evens out. So I'm with you. We're not buying Landon Knack to become like the solution to all of the Dodgers' problems, but we're buying him as a guy you can easily pencil in compared to calling up Justin Robleski, which we'll talk about, or a bullpen game or something of that ilk. So I'm with you on the Landon Knack. Do you think, is there still room for improvement for him, or is what we saw last year kind of, I hate to say the ceiling, but what to expect best case scenario for a guy like Landon Knack moving forward?
I think there still could be improvement. We saw his changeup was the pitch that took the biggest leap into this year. It's a plus pitch now, and I think that's huge for him. If he were to somehow dig deep, I don't know if it's an offseason, whatever, if he were to get more on the fastball and make that a better pitch, and that would certainly help him. So I think that there still is a possibility for some growth there, but I don't think that there's like a number 2 or a number 1 ceiling here, and that's okay. Like we're saying, Landon Knack seems to be in some ways the rock of the rotation right now of anchoring that back end, where every 5-6 days you know that he's going to be ready to go, and it might not be beautiful every time, but when it seems like the rest of the rotation is either up and down from AAA or going on the injured list and coming off the injured list, he seems like the one of the few consistent guys on the pitching staff that they can continue to turn to, and I know that they can expect this, even if it's not always pretty. They can expect Landon Knack to come out and show up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's shift from one pitcher to another, maybe a guy who struggled today to a guy who did not. Let's talk Tanner Scott. This guy was in everybody's crosshairs about 4 days ago. We've now seen back-to-back performances where Tanner Scott looks like, well, Tanner Scott. A 50% whiff rate in his last 2 appearances. He gives up 1 base hit, but gets 2 strikeouts and gets the Dodgers out of it today. Are you ready to be all the way back in and buy all the Tanner Scott stock that you can?
Yeah, I think that even through the struggles, he still was Tanner Scott, and I was willing to bet that he was going to figure it out eventually. These last 2 appearances have, like you said, looked like he's Tanner Scott again. The locations have been so much better. And before, when he's had so many struggles, especially that stretch from about Cleveland to early in this week, where it just seemed like that he couldn't get anybody out. It was so many pitches in the heart of the plate, and he was just getting barreled nonstop. And that seems to, at least these last 2 appearances, be completely gone. And he's been getting, like you said, 50% whiff rate. That's the Tanner Scott that the Dodgers gave the big contract to. That's why they gave him the big contract, when they don't do that for relievers. If he can get back to consistently being this guy that we saw these last 2 appearances, then he's going to lock down the 9th inning and the Dodgers will be golden.
Yeah, I think it was after his last appearance. He was being interviewed afterwards. He said, we did a deep dive, definitely had to clean some stuff up. I was flying open in the lower half, leading to the upper half. Everything was popping out a little early and not staying through a pitch, which led to locations being terrible. And the location piece, to me, I mean, if you watched Tanner Scott pitch for the Dodgers, you didn't have to be an expert to realize how often the Dodgers were asking him to throw a fastball that was elevated, and just how often he failed to do that. Everything was coming out. It felt like arm side, and he couldn't throw it. But if you go back and look at what he's done in the last 2, guess what happens when they call for a fastball up? They get a fastball up in the zone. The slider looks nasty. And so it does feel like what he's attempting to do is what is now being done. The fastball looks lively. The slider looks disgusting. This is, to your point, this is what they signed up for. And so that's why, even though it's 2 appearances for me, Bruce, I'm ready to buy back in, because this is what we believed a month ago we had in Tanner Scott.
Yeah, this looks like the guy that we watched in the division series last year and thought, man, wouldn't it be nice if he was wearing Dodger blue? This is the guy that the Dodgers went out and got. And I'm definitely willing to buy back in. With all of the issues that the bullpen has had, I think he can become the anchor that they can always rely on in the 9th inning. If the fastball location is where it needs to be, like you said, up in the zone, that allows the slider to dive off of it and play much better. And that's what we've seen these last 2 starts. The slider looks absolutely filthy when the hitters are actually having to be terrified of that fastball being up at their letters. And that's what we've seen.
Okay, last one. I've got to ask it. Michael Conforto, baby. He was 0 for 13 stretch coming in, 0 for 30 with runners in scoring position. Hadn't had a hit with a runner in scoring position since March. I think they said that doesn't sound real, but maybe. Big knock the other way to plate the go-ahead run. Is there any part of you like that wants to buy just a tiny bit of Michael Conforto stock, or is one hit not going to do it for you?
I'll give you a tiny bit because I think that he continues to hit the ball hard and he continues to not get results, but it just feels like that I haven't seen anything that proves this, but it feels like watching the games, he's as unlucky as anybody, not only on the Dodgers, but anybody in the league. He just can't get anything to fall. And I think there are also issues. It's not just bad luck. Obviously, the stat line is really bad. The thing with Conforto that I want to see for me to buy stock back in, I want to see some more power, man, because he hits the ball hard, but it feels like it's on the ground a lot. He's not elevating those hard hit balls, and he's walking a lot. Really, all Conforto needs to do, continue to walk this much and just start to leave the yard a little bit, hit some homers, get some extra base hits mixed in there. And then you've got a guy who walks a lot and can slug, and that's a decent left fielder. But he's walking a lot. If he's not slugging, it's hard for me to buy in when the defense is still so bad. So I'm sitting right on the fence. I know that's not a satisfying answer, but today is progress. Obviously, a big hit like that in a big spot hopefully turns him around. But start hitting for some power, and then I'll be able to have some faith.
You were asking, Baseball Savant does a stat that is expected batting average minus your actual batting average to basically judge who the least lucky people or most lucky people in Major League Baseball. Conforto's sixth most unlucky. I don't know what the best way to phrase that is. His expected batting average is not great, but it's 60 points higher than his actual batting average. And so what I would just say is if he was hitting 220, nobody would be thrilled, but the on-base percentage would be pushing 380 to 400, and that would be a perfectly acceptable player. So we'll see. Again, everybody knows where I am. We're holding our Conforto stock. We're, that's just a small tick up. The penny stock might be a penny and a half by the time the market opens tomorrow, but that's where we're at on Michael Conforto.
Sorry, Jeff. It's statistically difficult to hit $170. So that's where things are going to point that way. It's hard to stay down that low. And for a guy who has been hitting the ball decently hard sometimes, and we know Michael Conforto isn't terrible. So I think that naturally that has to come up, even if it's just a 200. Keep walking and hit for some power, and then the Dodgers have a left fielder.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To recap this one, again, the Dodgers win 6-5. They go down early after a 10-pitch first inning. Landon Knack gives up 3 solo home runs and a sac fly in the first 3 innings. It's 4-0 by the time the Dodgers come to hit in the bottom of the third. But then you get a Mookie RBI double, a Will Smith RBI single, and a Teoscar Hernandez RBI ground out that cuts the lead to 4-3. The Mets extend the lead to 5-3 in the top of the 8th, and then in the bottom of the 8th is where things go absolutely haywire in the best way possible. Mookie walks, Will Smith RBI double, cuts the lead to 5-4. Teoscar moves him over to third. And then the craziest play of the game. Andy Pahes hits a dribbler to third base. Will Smith apparently running on contact. We could talk about this. I don't know why he was with just one out, but he's running on contact. The play comes home, but Brett Beatty, I believe was the third baseman, throws a bounce pass to the catcher who doesn't catch it. Will Smith is now stopped heading back to third. When he sees the ball bounces, he turns back to home, where he would have easily been tagged out by Reed Garrett, who caught the ball, except for his catcher made a perfect screen on him, preventing him to get to Will Smith. Will Smith ties the game after a Freddie Freeman intentional walk. Michael Conforto rips the single to left field that puts this game out of reach when Tanner Scott comes in to save it. But can we talk about this Pahes to Will Smith play? Let me start here. Why the hell is Will Smith running on contact with one out on a ball that makes it basically to the pitcher's mound?
I'll tell you exactly why he was running is because exactly what happened in that moment with one out. I'm perfectly okay with that. Make the defense make a play. He was going on down angle. As soon as he saw that ball off the bat and down, he tried to force Beatty to throw him out. And Will Smith threw on the brakes when the throw got away and he knew it was going to be there. He was ready to get in a pickle. Hopefully that Pahes move up into scoring position before he got tagged out. But then once that throw was down, he wound up being able to score. If Will Smith didn't go on down angle, then that couldn't have happened. So I'm always a fan of with a man on third base and less than 2, maybe not with 0 outs where he still could have an execution at bat next, but with 1 out, make the defense make a play on you. That's what he did, and Beatty couldn't do it. So it was chaotic. I want to give a lot of credit to Andy Pahes too, because he fell behind 0-2, and it felt like oh no, is this going to be, a strikeout in a really bad spot? But he managed to get bad on the ball. I really am feeling a lot of faith in Andy Pahes to get some jobs done like that. And he did. Chaotic play, but Smith going on down angle forced the Mets to make a play, and they didn't do it.
Yeah, and I think it's a great point that Will Smith left himself the opportunity to force a rundown, which to your point would have allowed Pahes to advance into scoring position. And while second and third are different things with 2 outs, there's just about any single that you're going to be able to score on from second base there anyway. So I think it's a great point by you, Bruce. But again, the Mets don't make the play. The picture, I mean, if you haven't seen the still frame where it looks like the catcher is, I mean, literally playing like preventative defense on his pitcher to get home to Will Smith as he's sliding. It's an unbelievable picture, but the Dodgers escape by, in this one, they win 6-5. Again, they don't even go into extra innings, which I feared was going to be the case when that 8th inning was happening, but they escape with the 6-5 win.
Hey, Tyrese Halliburton might need Francisco Alvarez to go set him some screens to win the NBA Finals. Game 1's happening right now. But yeah, no, it was a chaotic play. It was unlike any moment that I've ever seen like that, where you've got 2 players on the same team that are at odds with each other, as Garrett was just trying to get the tag down. So it was crazy, but crazy benefited the Dodgers in this instance. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah. Dong with the super chat. Was it 1, a case of LOL Mets and Dodgers lucky to split the series, the error on the Freeman fly ball and home plate today? Or 2, that the Dodgers are that good, beating the MLB ERA leading pitching with great starts, and they could have won the series? When you think about this 4-game stretch, Bruce, do you think, man, we were lucky to get out with 2 out of 4? Or, man, the Mets are lucky, or man, the Dodgers played really well against a really good team and got out of there with 2 wins?
I don't think the Dodgers played their best series by any stretch, but I think it's a testament to who the Dodgers are. So if I'm choosing an answer, I think I'd choose number 2, because the way that this series unfolded to me is it's a Dodgers team that does not have their best pitching healthy by any stretch. And it's a team that didn't play their best baseball, but still managed to escape with a split against a really good Mets team. That Tuesday game could have been a comeback victory. I think that you can look at Tuesdays and today's and say one of those 2 games, if you're the Dodgers and you continue to be the Dodgers that we know and love, they were going to come back and win one of those 2 games. They got today's. So I just think it's a testament to the Dodgers' ability as a great baseball team to not have their full strength, to not be playing their best ball, but still manage to find wins against playoff caliber teams.
Yeah, I am actually going to lean number 1, which probably is surprising. I'm usually the eternal optimist, but when I look back at the series, they lose the first game in extras. They're only in extras because Ohtani gets a home run in the bottom of the 9th to force extras, and then they lose it. They win in extras. The next night, they get smoked on Wednesday, and then they come from behind thanks to some fortunate defensive plays from the Mets in that 8th inning. So this feels to me like the right outcome might have been closer to 3-1 than 2-2. So happy to have walked away with 2 wins. And it doesn't get any easier for the Dodgers, because now they travel to St. Louis, who's the hottest team in the National League. And then their first series against the Padres not too long after that in San Diego at the beginning of next week. So, Don, we appreciate the question. A great one. But yeah, I think I lean that the Dodgers were fortunate to get out of there with a pair of wins. Speaking of fortunate, let's talk about a couple injury updates. And this might be the first time in DodgerHeads history, Bruce, I'm not sure, where I'm going to give you 4 injury updates, and they're all going to be positive ones, okay? Let's talk Kirby Yates, Michael Kopech, Tommy Edman, and Hyseong Kim. We'll start with the 2 relievers. They threw live bullpens yesterday. The report we get today from Dave Roberts is that both guys came out of those feeling good. They responded well. Both should be active at some point this weekend. Again, that's according to Dave Roberts today. We'll talk in a little bit about how quickly they might be activated and available. But Yates and Kopech, again, I'm not expecting either of these guys to like pencil themselves into the 9th or even the 8th inning role immediately. But if you're telling me we're replacing Ryan Ludus and Jose Urena, then all of a sudden these options sound really good to me.
Yeah, the problem in this whole stretch, I think, obviously the 9th inning hasn't been a guarantee either, but it's been, when you look past those first couple of names, including the pair of rookies in Kasparius and Dreyer, down the rest of the reliever depth chart, a lot of these games, it's felt like, who the heck can the Dodgers go to right now once the starter leaves the game? So getting back names like Kirby Yates and Michael Kopech, it doesn't matter where they're pitching, just having them in there as part of the staff of options is massive.
Yeah. Again, this is a floor raiser in the short term. Now, this might be a ceiling raiser in the long term, but I cannot emphasize enough how little confidence I have in Ludus and Urena. And we'll see. Again, we'll talk in a moment about who the roster moves might be, but we're not talking about, oh my gosh, the Dodgers got their 8th and 9th inning guys back. We're saying, holy smokes, they just upgraded their 7th inning guys or their 6th inning guys, which is a huge deal. The other injury updates we got were on Tommy Edman and Hyseong Kim. Edman back in the lineup. This was the quote from Dave Roberts pregame quote. Looks like we're in the clear on both of these guys. Estuary Ruiz was on the taxi squad yesterday. James Outman added to the taxi squad today in case either of those two needed to be on the injured list at some point this weekend. That did not happen. So Outman and Ruiz will be headed back to Oklahoma City, but the Dodgers appear to have dodged a bullet with both Edman and Kim, who they'll need in the next week with big games coming up.
Yeah, I was very thankful to see Tommy Edman back in the lineup today. He had not been in the starting lineup back-to-back games, came off the bench in one of them, but it was good to see Edman back in the starting lineup today. It sounds like Hyseong Kim will be ready to go against right-handed pitching in St. Louis. So obviously, when it feels like that the whole roster has been injured all the time, Edman already had a stint on the IL. Teoscar had a stint on the IL. It's just, you want to see this team, at least the offense, at full strength as much as possible. And especially with all the pitching struggles, the Dodgers need these guys in order to keep winning games when we've very much been in a holding pattern of the offense just needs to outscore everybody no matter what the pitching does.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, with the pitching as it is setting up, like I tweeted, the Dodgers are navigating this with, 5 starting pitchers, which is the unique thing. We're going to talk Robleski here in a second, but in the first 16 games of this gauntlet that they are in the middle of, they've seen 4 starts from Landon Knack and then 3 apiece from Yamamoto, Gonsolin, May, and Kershaw. I'm including a Knack start in there where he was more of a bulk guy, but you get the point. The fact that they're 9-7 against a really tough stretch with that group of 5, who they're all names we recognize, but we talked about Knack earlier. Gonsolin and May have been up and down. Clayton Kershaw is just coming back. Yamamoto is the only guy you kind of feel good about every time he takes the mound. So to know that Tommy Edman and Hyseong Kim are going to be there, we're in a stretch, Bruce, where it feels like offense or die is going to be the Dodgers' recipe. 5 runs or less, and I don't feel good about the Dodgers' chances to win these games. So having those guys in the lineup, I think, is a really big deal.
And a really big part with those 2 guys specifically, too. They're going to hit near the bottom of the lineup usually, but they also have great gloves. So when you don't know exactly what's getting run out on the pitching side, having those guys on defense definitely always helps.
Good point. Speaking of pitching, tomorrow, Dave Roberts announcing that Justin Robleski will be recalled to start. They were scheduled to have some form of a bullpen game, but there was lots of speculation pretty quickly when Landon Knack clearly didn't have it, that the Dodgers might need an alternative option. Robleski was scheduled to start in Oklahoma City. I imagine this was always on the buffet of options that the Dodgers and Dave Roberts had, but they do decide that Justin Robleski is going to come and he will start game 1 in St. Louis tomorrow. It has been a rough season for Justin Robleski, no matter how you shape it. In the major leagues, he has 9 innings and 8 earned runs. At the minor league level, he has a 5.09 ERA in 40 innings. And the last 2 starts, Bruce, have been worse. 9 1/3, 15 hits, 4 walks, and 9 earned runs for Robleski. This is a guy I like, and yet I haven't really seen anything that I can point to and grab onto to justify liking or feeling good about him. Is there anything at the minor league level that maybe those of us that are only paying attention to the Dodgers have missed as far as a reason for optimism here?
I think Robleski and the Dodgers with him are in a tough situation right now because, to me at least, he hasn't looked like the same guy since he debuted last year. I don't want to accuse the Dodgers of rushing him or anything like that. He came up from Double-A. That's a tough assignment for anybody. But it seems to me like he just kind of got thrown off, and his approach on the mound has been different. What was so nice about watching him in Tulsa last year before he made his debut was he was just pinpoint. The location, the command was so good, and that seems to have been lost. I know watching when he's been in the big leagues between last year and this year, it just feels like the pitches are in hittable locations a lot. He sprays around when he tries to get too fine and winds up walking more guys than he ever did before his call up. So I think that has carried over into this year, and things have not been very good. Obviously, you have to throw the little asterisk on those numbers in AAA that it is the PCL. It's always not going to look super pretty, but those numbers are bad no matter what league you're in. Yeah. So I think right now the main place they're in is Robleski is the arm that's scheduled and lines up and is a live person on the 40-man roster. So they're going to have to call him up and, see what happens. It's kind of the similar thing that when they brought up Bobby Miller last, he wasn't having a particular amount of success in AAA either, but when the Dodgers need a guy, they need a guy, and Wroblewski's the one on the 40-man right now. I just hope that he can get back to where he was with the command was so good. He's kind of an outlier. The fastball and the extension is first percentile. So he just needs to get back to good command and just being that weird pitcher that is different from what guys are used to seeing. And that's how he will thrive.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm hoping for the best. Obviously, it's a tough spot against one of the best teams in the National League. The other question here is what the Dodgers do from a roster perspective. When you look at the bullpen, it seems like there's two, I suppose maybe three guys who are on the chopping block. And I say that because they need to make a move for Wroblewski tomorrow. And then they've got Yates and Kopech who are expected back, quote, this weekend. They pitched a bullpen yesterday, so they were off today. Given the state of the bullpen, I don't think it's crazy to think that a guy like Kirby Yates might be recalled as quickly as tomorrow. And then Michael Kopech takes Wroblewski's place on Saturday. But either way, they need two spots. Ryan Ludus, Jose Urena, those seem like the two most obvious. I suppose Lou Trevino, who I think has been decent at least. Ludus is probably available tomorrow, which makes me think that your Urena might be the guy odd man out. He threw 31 pitches today. But you made the point right as we were coming on. Urena signed a major league contract. So maybe that changes the equation a little bit. How do you see the Dodgers navigating this?
Yeah, we'll see. It's complicated. Like you said, I think Ludus being a guy who could be available tomorrow when Urena probably will not be. I think that they probably have to look inward and decide what they think Justin Wroblewski is going to bring, whether they think that they're going to have enough arms. Jack Dreyer probably won't be available. I think Ben Kasparius probably should be. He threw, 28 pitches in his last time. So I would think he'll be ready for an inning at least maybe. But without Dreyer, without Urena, if he stays on the roster, I think it's just going to come down to what the Dodgers think Justin Wroblewski is going to be able to do. Because if he goes out and gives 2 innings and you option Ludus for him, then it could get rough to get to the end of that game tomorrow. So I think right now it's tough to imagine them just cutting bait with Urena, especially after he pitched well today. So they might have something there to at least fill some depth in the bullpen, but he's not available tomorrow. And right now that's the space the Dodgers are in. So I really don't know what they're going to do, but there's trade-offs with both of the options of getting rid of Ludus or Urena. Like I mentioned to you before we went on the air, I'm not exactly sure what the details are with Urena signing a big league contract. I am under the impression that when you sign a big league contract, you're not able to be just sent down to the minors like that. But I'm not sure if it's something possible that they could have written into the deal that they can send him down or something like that. It does seem like a little unlikely to me that the Dodgers would have just handed out a big league deal with the understanding that they were probably going to have to eat that entire contract fairly soon into the future. So I'm not exactly sure what the details are there with Urena. If they could send him down, I think that's what happens. So we'll see.
Yeah, look, Urena makes no sense to me. I mean, I joked about this on our show. The guy has thrown 1,000 major league innings over 11 seasons and has 3.1 wins above replacement for his career. He doesn't strike anybody out. He's never had an ERA under 3.8. He's never had a FIP under 4. Like, this guy it's like a cockroach that nobody can get rid of, and people talk themselves into, I guess. But to your point, like, he looked decent. I would say today he got bailed out by the Will Smith back pick on third base. Right. That was the third out after he miraculously got a strikeout. So to his credit there, but we'll see. I mean, if he did sign a major league contract, the Dodgers are always thinking 5 steps ahead. So they wouldn't be surprised that they're going to need some guys this weekend. To your point on the bullpen real quick, Kasparius has not pitched since June 3rd. He threw 28 pitches on June 3rd. So you would imagine that he's available for multi-innings in this one. Dreyer threw 31 pitches today, had not pitched in a couple days, but he's probably done. Again, Ludus, I mean, I don't think they care about this guy's arm, unfortunately. So he threw 38 pitches 2 days ago. It's like, hey, buddy, do you want a job or no job? I think is the question for him. Tanner Scott has now gone 3 times in 4 days, so he will presumably be unavailable tomorrow. Lou Trevino, off day today, only pitched once in the last 3. And then Vesia only got 1 out. So, I mean, I imagine Vesia is available, Trevino's available, Ludus is available, and then Kasparius. I guess Bonda had the day off as well. So they've got 5 guys maybe available in that bullpen, but if Wroblewski only gives you 4, you're going to kind of be piecing it together. Maybe Kasparius, if you can get 6 from Wroblewski and Kasparius, then you probably feel pretty good about making the rest of it work, right?
The thing that I'm thinking, if you just assume, it depends on if Kirby Yates could be ready for tomorrow. I think it sounds like he's a little ahead of Kopech, so he'll probably be the first guy off, is my impression. If he were ready to be activated tomorrow, then you're going to need to free up 2 roster spots. That might make the decision very easy. Of Ludus and Urania both have to go because they're the 2 obvious candidates. So I think it kind of depends on whether Yates or Kopech could be available for tomorrow, and that might make the decision even more obvious.
Do you think Trevino has pitched well enough in your mind to kind of be a half step above those other 2?
Certainly over those 2 guys. I think so. He's at least contributed good innings when he's been on the mound. It hasn't been a huge sample size, but there's much more of a track record of success in the past there with Trevino than those other 2 guys. So I think he should be safe in this instance where the Dodgers need specifically 2 roster spots to be filled up. He might not be in the future, but for right now, I think he's okay.
Yeah, look, they don't call him High Levy Lou for nothing, so they got to keep him around with a nickname like that. All right, let's do something we like to do whenever Bruce is on with me on Thursday nights, a little prospect corner. Then we'll get to some questions. So if you want to start populating the chat with your questions, all caps questions, go ahead. But you've got Peter Hubek as your prospect highlight tonight. He was a 3rd rounder in 2021 straight out of high school. What caught your eye with Hubek recently?
Yeah, so his last start in AA Tulsa was a really, really good one. Pitched into the 6th inning and didn't allow a single hit, 7 strikeouts. So this is the kind of profile that he was a 3rd rounder in 2021 out of high school in Maryland. And it's been a slow burn on his way up through the system. He's still very much in a similar place as he has been with. It's a lot of strikeouts. It's a lot of walks. But it's not a lot of hits. And that's the thing with Hubek. He misses barrels and he misses bats. And that's what stands out in his profile. He's in his first year at AA Tulsa. It's certainly been up and down. If you look at his overall numbers, it's similar to what we've talked about with Jackson Ferris, where the overall numbers don't fully paint the picture because there are some blow-up starts in there. And then there are some really, really good starts. And that's what Hubek had this last time out. The fastball is Verdi, plays at the top of the zone. Really good carry on that pitch, and he's got a hammer breaking ball, a good slider. Those are 3 really good pitches for him that I have a lot of faith in. It's really with him just about throwing strikes. If he can do that, I think he might have a starting pitching future with a lot of whiffs. At best, I think the starting pitcher profile is like a 5 and dive, throw enough strikes to get through 5 innings and hope you get some strikeouts in there. If not, a shift to the bullpen with his repertoire should work, but I think there could certainly be a major league arm in here that could give some quality innings no matter what role it's in.
And what's the timeline? That's always my question on a guy like this. Obviously, first year in AA, that tells me almost, he's not, 2025 is not the
right.
ETA. Is it back half of 2026 potentially?
Yeah, so he's already in his age 22 season. That doesn't sound like it's very old, but for a guy who was drafted out of high school, he's been around for a while. Like you said, first year at AA, he's not quite ready yet, but he's Rule 5 eligible at the end of this season. So the Dodgers are going to be on have to make a decision pretty soon, and that always can speed up the timeline. If they think that he's worth protecting, which I certainly think at least is a coin flip, I think there's a solid chance of that, then they're going to have to add him to the 40-man roster this offseason. And then if they decide that means they need to speed up the timeline and just move him to the bullpen so he can get up faster, they could do that. We've also seen before, though, the Dodgers aren't terrified of adding guys to the 40-man roster that aren't immediately ready to debut. So I think next year, maybe middle of the season or back half is a solid goal for him.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. So there you go. Prospect corner, Peter Hubek. We got a bunch of prospect questions coming your way, Bruce. So I hope you're ready as we go through these questions. Let's start with this from GI. Again, all caps questions. Throw it in the chat. We got about 15 more minutes. We'd love to get to some of these. Nick Fraso is one of those guys who was added to the 40-man roster in order to be protected, who has not yet made his major league debut. What are your thoughts on him being used out of the bullpen, Bruce?
Yeah, so it hasn't been pretty for him in AAA so far this year. The stuff hasn't been where I was hoping it would be coming back from the labrum surgery. I think that this being used out of the pen was always something that, if not likely, was certainly a possibility for Fraso. And with the stuff not playing where they wanted it to, I think I'm totally fine with this. If he can get himself healthy and just get his fastball back, then he could be a really good reliever. That is certainly remains to be seen whether that fastball can come back. But I think moving to the bullpen is a step in that direction of at least make it maybe shorter stints and just try to do whatever you can to channel everything that he has into each pitch. Because, man, I swear before that labrum surgery happened, when the Dodgers first got him from the Jays in that late 2022 season, his fastball looked like a 70, like double plus. It was so good. And he practically didn't need another pitch, but he still had an above average changeup and gyroscopic slider. So I used to be such a big fan of Fraso, and it's been unfortunate to see this stuff not rebound from the labrum surgery, moving to the pen, and hopefully that'll help him get back to where his stuff used to be. So I think it also helps his timeline of we're talking about how much the Dodgers have needed arms, and Fraso was holding one of those 40-man roster spots that are so valuable down there in AAA. The Dodgers have quite a few guys on the 60-man injured list right now. And if, as the season goes on, some of those guys start to get activated, those 40-man spots are going to become very valuable. And if Fraso hasn't proven that he, at least in the future, will be able to get back to where his stuff used to be, then he might get a little bit, his spot might be in danger more than I ever expected to be talking about mid-season here. And moving him to the pen might at least move up the timeline of if they need a fresh arm. He's occupying a 40-man spot already, so he could maybe be in the mix sooner than if he was still starting.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that pre-shoulder surgery, a lot of places had him as the number one pitching prospect in the Dodgers organization. And obviously, you've seen some of the guys that have come through the system since then. So obviously, that wasn't purely based on talent. There was some, risk and how close he was and all that kind of thing. But Fraso is not nothing pre-surgery. But to your point, he struggled mightily, unfortunately. Dodgers Hub, if Pahes continues to play at this level, does he have a chance of making the All-Star team? Also, how is Freeland doing in AAA? When will he be called up to replace Rojas? Let's talk Pahes first. If you sort the National League by weighted runs created plus, Andy Pahes is 17th, one spot ahead of Fernando Tatis Jr., to put in some context. So that's not like necessarily all-star level because of how the all-star voting works, but he's at least established himself, Bruce, as a guy who's in the mix. And over the last month, you would think this WRC plus is trending in the right direction.
He's been batting well over 300 since the end of April. And really, I think the biggest thing with Pahes is not even just looking at the numbers, but just watching him play. He is an impact big leaguer right now and has been over these last couple of months. It's with the bat. He's back to being his aggressive self. And the thing that I just said this to my dad, I was at the game with him today, and I told him midway through when he got his base hit, if you told me 3 years ago in 2022 that this was the player Andy Pahes would be early in the year in 2025, I would not have believed you, not necessarily because he's a contributing big leaguer, but because he's a much different archetype of player than I ever expected him to be. Yeah. He's got the sweet spot percentage is really good. The launch angles are really nice. He just hits line drives, man. And that's not the player that he was coming up through the lower minor leagues. He was a chunky dude who hit home runs and had a cannon of an arm in right field. Now all of a sudden he's a pretty solid center fielder. He hits line drives and he hits for average. And I'm just huge on Andy Pahes right now. The way that he's rebounded, the mental mistakes are not there nearly as much as they had been early in the year. He seems like he's playing confident. He's playing with his shoulders down, and he's turning into an absolute stud for the Dodgers. So I don't know if he'll make the All-Star team, but I think he should be in the conversation if he continues to play this way.
Yeah, he just looks like a guy who, professional hitter is such a cliche, but he just looks like a guy. You said you trust him. I trust him too. And honestly, it's pretty funny to think that because it doesn't seem like he strikes out as much, I trust him more than some other guys at moments. Like Teoscar Hernandez has obviously been hugely clutch and knocks a ton of runs in, and Andy Pahes is not better than Teoscar Hernandez. But Hernandez feels like way more of a threat to strike out. Like in that spot where they just needed somebody to put the ball in play, I had a weird thought where I was like, I don't know how many guys in the lineup I would prefer to Andy Pahes in that spot. Obviously, the big names, Ohtani, Smith, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, etc. But once you get down to the next tier, I just feel confident that he's going to put together a solid at bat and get the bat on the ball, which is more than I could say for some other guys in that spot.
He's a gamer, and that's what it feels like, that he's at the plate and he's as dialed in as he could possibly be. And you can really see it in the way that his at-bats go. The one thing for him that as he got back to this aggressive form of himself, the chase is back up a little bit. That's not a thing that needs to happen immediately, because right now you'll take it. The way that he's playing, it's excellent. But as he continues to move into his big league career, if he finds a way to keep this aggressive approach and keep hitting like this, but also cut down on some of the chase, then you're talking about a legitimate star. And I really think Andy Pahes has that ability. He's playing so well right now. And I had the same thought as he came up to the plate in that spot where he wound up I don't think he got credited for the RBI with Smith, but that's a great example of it because he fell down 0-2, got a good breaking ball away, and he kind of just stuck out one hand and found a way to get the ball in play and let whatever happens. If he strikes out there, that would be catastrophic, but he just found a way to get the ball in play. So that was huge for him.
Andy Pahes' strikeout rate, by the way, is the same as Freddie Freeman's this year, to put that in context. So impressive stuff. Start with the question: when will we see Edgardo Enriquez in the back of this bullpen? This is another name that we haven't talked a ton about, but there's been some speculation. He's made an appearance, I believe it's just one, for Oklahoma City after having pitched down in the complex. It seems like at least a couple of times, but it seems like Enriquez, we haven't heard anything official, at least not that I can remember in the last couple of days, but it seems like this is another guy that, maybe it's not this weekend, but in the next week and a half could be another arm in the back of the bullpen, who again would be a massive upgrade over some of the dudes they've been trotting out.
Relievers don't take too long to stretch out, and I think they'll give him enough time. I don't see like next week as an immediate need for him because the thing to remember here, Michael Kopech was given a lot of time in AAA to get right, and of course he didn't have great success, but he's a big league veteran. Enriquez still has like barely tasted the major leagues, so I think they give him a chance to get settled back into the flow of things in AAA. But if he just continues on his rehab assignment, I don't think that they will feel a need to option him after the rehab assignment. He still has great stuff. And like you said, he's an upgrade over what the Dodgers have been having to use for a lot of this season. So I'm excited that he's back on the mound. It was obviously very unfortunate that whatever happened to him, I still don't know exactly what happened to him. I don't think anybody does, but whatever it was disappointing. And I'm glad that he's back now because when Enriquez is at his best, he touched 104 miles an hour in the minor leagues last year. And his fastball, really his cutter slider thing is just as good as his fastball. So with those two pitches, this guy at his peak is an absolute weapon. So I can't wait till he's back.
Yeah. And there was reports, by the way, in that first appearance that it was more balls than strikes, I believe. So
that's typical, but let the stuff show through and hope that he throws strikes. That's the Enriquez experience.
Love it. I love it. Rod wants to know who will be the first starter back from injury. And I'm assuming when will it be? It feels like Emmett Sheehan might be the closest out of, if we're talking Ohtani, Snell, Glasnow, all those guys, Sasaki, most of those guys aren't even throwing. Ohtani seems to be the furthest along of everybody else. But to me, it feels like Emmett Sheehan is the closest. Is that your read on the situation, Bruce?
I think so. The one thing that I'm worried about with him is I don't know exactly how much time they're going to feel that he needs. They moved him up to AAA quicker than I thought. He only had one appearance in the complex league. I thought they were going to give him a little bit more time down there. Obviously, I don't know exactly how he's progressed. I think he's a little bit ahead of the timeline that was expected heading into this year. I didn't expect him to be in AAA at the beginning of June. So that's been good. Working back from Tommy John is always a much more difficult rehab than even these guys that are on the shelf with shoulder stuff with Glasnow and Snell and Roki. Tommy John rehab is always a difficult thing. So if they run into any kind of problem, the good thing with Shien, I guess good thing is a weird way to describe it in this case, but if they run into any sort of obstacle, they have the ability to just activate him off the injured list and then option him back to AAA if they feel like they need more time. There's also written into the rules you can't extend the rehab assignment for guys that are coming back from Tommy John specifically. So they could do that as well. But ultimately, I agree with you because out of all those starting pitchers that are hurt, he's the only one that is pitching in games right now. So if that's the qualifier, certainly, then I think Emmett Sheehan is closest. And I am really looking forward to when he's back.
Yeah, he appeared this past week in Oklahoma City, 3 innings, 2 hits, no runs, and 5 strikeouts. I believe he's thrown 5 innings and has 10 strikeouts in AAA so far this season. So pretty good. El Shiva, prospect question for you. What's up with Jared Keros? Is he having troubles in performance?
Yeah, he hasn't been great. I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't been paying super close attention to Keros, but what I've seen, things haven't been great so far this year. I remember early in the season, he gave up a homer to Jack Caglione, who's now up with the Royals, that was posted all over the internet. So I felt kind of bad for him there, but Keros hasn't been great so far this year. I think that I'm willing to give him a little bit of time. Last year was kind of a funky season for him because he was really good at the start in high A, kind of continued the performance to double A, but then had a long stretch in the middle of the year that he was on the development list. And I don't know for sure whether that was just controlling innings or if he was dealing with some kind of ailment. I don't know for sure, but that could be affecting him into this year. Obviously, he's still in Double-A and will continue to have opportunities there until things get going on a better track.
Aaron says, rank these pitching prospects: RiverRyan, Emmett Sheehan, Jackson Ferris, and Nick Fraso. I'm guessing Nick Fraso is a distant fourth in this group. Is that fair?
He's the third because I don't want to get all like Emmett Sheehan isn't a prospect anymore. He graduated. I understand putting him in this group. So sorry, Aaron. I don't mean to be.
Hey, you're a prospect guy. You've got morals and principles, Bruce. If we cross off the prospect piece and just say rank these pitchers, Ryan, Shien, Ferris, and Fraso, how would you rank them?
I'm going Shien number 1, Ryan number 2 by just a smidge, Ferris, and then, like you said, Fraso is distant to the rest of this group. Ryan has shown a lot more than Jackson Ferris, but I think it's tough also to talk about here. I would assume we're talking about peak.
Yeah.
You can keep an eye on RiverRyan and prospect rankings is like a very tough case because I don't know if everybody's aware of this. In prospect rankings, what evaluators are ranking, I do this too with my list. What you're ranking is the predicted WAR output over the first 6 seasons of big league control. And RiverRyan might be 28 next time he steps on a big league mound. So like that's tough to go out 6 seasons and assume that when he's 34 still in arbitration that he's going to be the same guy. So he's just kind of an albatross there. But Sheehan's peak, Ryan's peak, Ferris's peak, and then Fraso is how I'd rank those guys in terms of what I think they can be at their best.
I love it. Yeah, RiverRyan, we know what he's capable of, but I think you make a great clarification and qualifier there of age and how far out, and where we knew where Fraso was pre-injury.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about where he is post-injury. We're obviously not hoping that for RiverRyan. Emmett Sheehan has responded well in his sort of rehab from injury, but there's a lot of unknowns with a guy like RiverRyan. TQT, Craig Goldstein mentioned that Ben Kasparius is the Dodgers' second best starting pitcher at the moment, so ahead of Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, Clayton Kershaw, and Landon Knack, but he's being used as a long reliever. Why do you think Kasparius wasn't turned back into a starter weeks ago?
We've touched on this a little bit in previous shows, Jeff. I think that the role that he's been in right now, they've been giving him so many innings that it's practically like a starter's workload. And the way that he's been able to be used as a Swiss Army knife, this is something that I've been saying for a couple of years. I think the Dodgers specifically as an organization are very well geared to do. They've had guys like Kasparius. Kyle Hurt was one that I really thought could have been suited for a role like this too. They've got so much pitching talent, guys that are like fringe starters, maybe don't throw enough strikes, whatever it is, that they could just be relievers who go one time through the order. And that's kind of been what Kasparius has been. And it's been so valuable with how inconsistent the starting rotation has been. Whenever they have a guy, it seems like each turn through the rotation, there's going to be somebody who just gets blown up. And Kasparius has always been ready to step in and save the day when that happens. And then when they're in a good stretch and that hasn't happened yet, then they throw him right into the deep end and high leverage, and he thrives there too. So the way that he's been able to be used in any sort of situation and continue to pitch extremely well really arguably has been even more valuable than just taking a start every 5th day. He's been so huge for this team as the pitching staff has been just crazy so far this year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think he's been valuable. And the other piece that I think we've touched on, for them to have built him up to become a starter might have required removing him from the role that he was actually in. Now, they could have scheduled it out, but that might have messed with the starting rotation. And so they probably just decided the simplest thing is to keep him with the team, use him when we need him, and allow him to get to your point. I mean, if he's doing 2 innings every 3 days, that's 4 innings every 6 days instead of, 5 innings every 6 days. Like, we're talking about very similar things. And you can make a case that the way that they've been using him, he's actually more valuable because he's coming into leverage spots and not, kind of just being started blind. So it's not to say that Craig Goldstein is wrong, that he's the second best starter, but the way they've been using him and the cost to have built him up, I think that combo maybe makes what they've been doing the right way, the right path forward.
The other thing there too with Kasparius, there's no full guarantee. I'm not saying that I don't believe in him or anything like that. There's no full guarantee that if he went back to a starting pitching role that he'd continue pitching as well as he is right now. And ultimately, when you forecast out the rest of the season, hopefully eventually guys are going to be healthy enough that they're not going to need him in the starting rotation. So when he's doing so well in the role that he's in right now, and come October, this is likely the role that he'll be in. There's no reason to really mess with it and maybe throw him off the rhythm that he's got right now. I think it's okay to leave him alone, let him continue to thrive in the role that he's in now, because it's still been plenty valuable compared to just pigeonholing him into a starting pitching role.
Yeah, absolutely. Rykar says, will we ever see Ryan Ward get a shot, or will he get traded since he's doing pretty well at AAA? You've made the point. I mean, this guy could have been claimed in the Rule 5 draft by any team in Major League Baseball. I believe it's at least 2 seasons in a row, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that another team would want to trade for him, he continues to do the same thing he has done the last couple of years. And I believe, apologies if it wasn't you, but we basically said the bat, the power might be real, but he's such a liability defensively that the offensive potential upside doesn't necessarily outweigh the defensive downside. Is that fair?
Yeah, the power is good, but the rest of the profile, and even within the bat, he doesn't really get on base a ton. And I said the same thing last time. I don't want to sound like I'm harping on Ryan Ward, because he's done everything he can do. He's raked in AAA, led the PCL in homers last year, is doing great again down there this year. So there's really nothing that you can blame him for. If he were to get traded, it would be like a team has an injury in the corner outfield and calls up the Dodgers and says, we'll toss you some cash. Just give us this guy who's blocked in your organization. And I would hope the Dodgers would say, sure, because he doesn't have a path forward here. We just saw it with Drew Avens. He was an org guy for many years in the Dodgers. He I think was in AAA for 4 years, including last year. Finally opted out of his contract and went and signed with the A's. Now he made his big league debut there. Ryan Ward might be on a similar path. I think that if he gets a big league chance, it will be in another organization, and that's really no fault to him. It's just the way the profile doesn't fit the Dodger roster.
Eden says, will we see Mookie get going this year? I will say, stay tuned. I will tease again. Blake Williams and I have a video coming out tomorrow going through. I basically make the case for Mookie Betts, not for him in the case of like, don't panic. I make the case against him, why maybe you should panic. We talk about his defense, all sorts of good stuff in there. So I will say stay tuned to that. And if you still have follow-up questions, maybe Anthony and I can get into it on Sunday. TQT, Mets are elite at reclamation pitchers, Severino, Manaea, Holmes, Canning, etc. Have they passed us in R&D because we've been striking out on those lately?
What an interesting question. I think that, especially with Clay Holmes, the Mets weren't the only team that was prepared to turn him into a starter. And I think that there was writing on the wall that he could be the guy that he is right now. So, while I do give the Mets credit there, I don't think that they were the only team that could do that. Canning is very impressive. Severino got back to what he used to be. So the Mets certainly are looking impressive in their R&D. But it's tough to talk about the Dodgers and their R&D because so much of it revolves around the injuries, and that's really the only question anybody has right now. The Dodgers still continue to do a good job of making pitchers their best selves, but they're not doing a good job of keeping them on the field, and it's a whole other can of worms that you could open of, is it the Dodgers' fault that these guys aren't on the field? Is it just that the pitchers they target tend to be the kinds of pitchers who get injured? I think it's a mixture of both things, and the Dodgers certainly are going to need to search inward and try to figure out how to get their guys on the field more. But I still think in a vacuum, I would take the Dodger front office and the way that they operate over pretty much anybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and keep in mind that the Dodgers haven't exactly been taking, they didn't take any shots at these reclamation type project guys this past year. So the Mets have been taking more of them. They've found some success. The Dodgers have failed to do so in the recent case, James Paxton, those types of guys. So it is worth pointing out. By the way, I see some people in the chat saying Tyrese Halliburton may have just did a shot to give the Pacers the lead with 0.3 of a second left. So big deal if true. Big deal if true. Let's see. Maybe one or two more questions here. GI says, injuries aside, is there any argument to be made that Mark Pryor should be on the hot seat? Team ERA has hovered around 4 for the last 3 to 4 seasons.
I don't think so, because when the pitching staff that the Dodgers expect to be on the field is on the field, I think things still go very well. It's just when there's some of these journeymen and random names that you had never heard of before the season, and then all of a sudden are pitching in medium leverage in June. I don't think that you can really blame Mark Pryor for that. It's just been really hard to evaluate where the Dodgers are at pitching wise as an organization over these last couple of years, all because of the injuries. And I don't think that's a prior problem.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. By the way, the Halliburton shot was a 20-footer, and it was absolutely insane. So kudos to Tyrese Halliburton. Elishiva wants to know, what is the best new food at Dodger Stadium this year? Did you try any food you liked, Bruce?
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not a food at the stadium guy because I'm too cheap for it. I bring in food when I'm going to eat in the stadium. Sometimes I bring in Subway. Sometimes I'll bring in a Tommy Burger once in a while. It's a little messy for me, so that's not the usual. But I bring in food when I want food at Dodger Stadium because I just don't like opening my wallet to all the options in there.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. Last question. We'll get out of here on this one. Cole says, actually, we got two more here. Let's go with Dong first. Dong had a funny one. Since roaches were mentioned earlier, which is worse, roaches or mosquitoes?
Oh my gosh. So this is a multi-layered question because mosquitoes will harm you. Roaches will be annoying. I think ultimately I'll choose the roaches because they're not going to bite me as much. The mosquitoes will make my life living hell. The roaches.
So you're saying mosquitoes worse than roaches?
Yeah, the roaches will make a mental hell, but the mosquitoes will make a physical hell. And I think I will hope that I can get past the mental, throw in some earbuds and like pretend that it's not happening and maybe I'll be okay.
Yeah, see, mosquitoes, I feel like you've got pathways to avoid them when it comes to, long sleeves, that kind of thing, maybe some bug spray. You framed it well, mental versus physical hell. Yeah. And I think the mental hell of knowing roaches are in the vicinity is worse. So I'm going with roaches as worse, but that's a split decision.
I guess I kind of filled in some gaps here on the question. I was kind of thinking myself, like I'm trapped to be doomed to one of the two. If you have the possibility to avoid them, then I agree. I think mosquitoes are a lot more avoidable than roaches.
All right, last question. Cole says, last day on earth, what are you having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? I can go first on this one. Breakfast is very easy
I need
for
some
me.
time to think here.
Breakfast, I'm going breakfast burrito. Just give me a classic. Maybe it's chorizo, maybe it's bacon, but eggs, cheese, potatoes, maybe some pico de gallo, which apparently is not salsa. Don't need to get into that debate today. That would be my breakfast. Dinner, I'm going a steakhouse setup. Give me like a great steak with a ton of great sides. Can't go wrong with that. For lunch, man, am I going great pizza here? Am I going a great burger here? This is a tough decision. Give me, give me pizza. Give me just a great top tier pizza for lunch. That would be so breakfast burrito, pizza, and then steakhouse for dinner.
Yeah, I think for breakfast, I'm thinking like the best omelet in the world with like some smoked salmon on the side, a dish like that. I think I could get behind for the last breakfast. Lunch, I was thinking pizza, same thing, because I feel like that's something that's got to be in there at some point in the day, and I don't want to reserve it for dinner. So I think lunch, I'll go pizza. And I don't want to sound like I'm just copying your answers, but I was thinking the same thing, like a really quality steak and like a baked potato, maybe another side of I like salmon, so maybe give me some more salmon or something like that and finish off the dinner that way.
I love it. Do you have a cut of steak, or do you have a specific, are you like a filet guy, a ribeye guy?
I like ribeyes because especially if I'm not in public, like if it's a ribeye that like I'll barbecue at home or something, then I go to town on the bone and I enjoy that part.
Yeah, I'm with you. Bone-in ribeye is absolutely my move on that one. Give me some creamed corn, some creamed spinach, some French fries, just mashed potatoes, whatever we got. Every topping available, available, we will take. So great question, Cole. Good one to go out on, folks. That's going to do it for us. Pacers win 111-110, apparently. So that's a crazy upset. So kudos to the Pacers. But we appreciate you all. The Dodgers split with the Mets. They come back to win 6-5, and they're off to St. Louis, a 3-game set. A couple of notes for you. Again, one, Mookie Betts, conversation about him that's going to be posted tomorrow. I think a lot of you are going to find that interesting. So go ahead and check that out. Second, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, make sure you are tuned in right here because we will be covering the Padres series. I will not be there, but Matt, Blake, our team, the Dodger Blue team, will be in San Diego covering that game from the stadium. So tons of great content will be right here on the Dodger Blue YouTube page. So if you haven't already, subscribe at Dodger Blue 1958. Ring the notification bell for that as well. That is Bruce Kuntz. You can find him at bnicholas7 on social media. Again, he is with me on Thursdays, which I'm very excited about for that. Anthony Witrado and I will be back on Sunday night, so make sure you don't miss that. Until then, everybody, go Dodgers, and of course, still champs.